So what we're going to do is we're going to plant our sweet peas in this box. Now this box is only about 1 foot by about 3 foot by about 1 foot or so deep, and that means that it really dries out when we get hot weather, and you have to constantly water it, and then the water will just run through if the soil's dry. And we grew tomatoes in these pots last year, and what we used to make sure that the watering was consistent was one of these. Now they're actually called Ollas, which is O-L-L-A. I think that's pronounced right. The principle behind this is that it's a terracotta setup where you fill the inside with water, and then the water soaks through the terracotta, but it doesn't actually soak all the way through like you would if you had just a normal plastic pot in there and drain away. The water stays inside the terracotta until the water density of the terracotta and the soil are equaled out. And what will happen is that the plants, when you put them in here, will seek out this water source, and when they do, what they will do is they will wrap their roots all the way around these pots. And when we pulled this out of here at the end of the last year when we had tomatoes in there, you literally had a hole that was just completely surrounded by roots from the plants, where they'd sought out the water from here and they'd just taken what they needed from the terracotta pot, and as the water permeates through the terracotta, and then as they do that and they dry the pot, more water comes from inside the reservoir and soaks into the terracotta, but it doesn't sort of drain away. Now when you fill one of these up, something like this sort of size, it's a good week, 2 weeks, depending on what the weather conditions are, before you have to refill it again. And that means it just takes all the hassle out of actually watering. Now to do this, all we've done is taken 2 identical pots, put some silicone sealant over the bottom, got some silicone sealant round the rims and stuck that down. And then what we're going to do is going to bury that into the ground so it's down at this sort of level, so it's just the tops showing off. Fill it up with water, put a rock across the top, and then we're going to use this bed this year for our sweet peas. So let me get on and bury it and show you how it looks. So we've got our 2 pots in here now, and we'll be planting all around those. So the first thing we want to do is just fill these up. Now they are like quite big plant pots, so they're going to take a good amount of filling up. And the advantage of using these is that, unlike when you put like a pot in the ground and you just plastic pot and you just water that in and all the water soaks down through the pot into the deep part of the soil, these pots won't empty unless the soil around them is drier than the pot itself. So unless the actual soil dries out more than the wet terracotta does, the water will actually stay in here. So it's a good indication for you when you come along as to whether they need watering or not. So just fill that one up, just fill it up to the top, and then what we'll do is we'll just get a small stone to put across the top there to stop any bugs or anything else falling in, and we'll get them both filled up, and then we'll get our sweet peas in there. So these sweet peas are well overdue coming out, really. They're been sat on the windowsill at home waiting for the weather to actually warm up a little bit. And truly they should have been coming out probably this time last week. So I'm just going to plant them in, and we've got this mesh up here, and just going to push them through, and once they get going, they'll just cling onto that mesh. I'll put another one in here, and this is a royal family mix. So these are all different sorts. There's some purpley ones and some general coloured ones. So we'll put those down in there, get those all covered up. So get those fed through. They've got a bit spindly because they've been on the windowsill at home, fighting for light when they should have been out here. But it's just been far too wet and far too cold in the evenings to actually get down here and actually get them in the ground. So let's move those ones over. Let's move this one over a bit just so we got a good balance. So they'll climb up there. I'm sure they'll all sort themselves out in time. there we go. So all remains now is to just get a small stone, just put that on top. So just going to get a little bit of stone, just put that on top, cover around the top of the pot just to stop any evaporation. Just around there, and just put that on top. As I say, these have been filled up and they're still completely full. And we won't have to actually touch those now for, well, even if the weather's dry. This soil's still quite damp from this week. We won't have to touch those now at all. We won't have to water these sweet peas again in their position because the soil's wet. Any further water will go into these little pots because they'll have more than enough time for their roots to grow and get to the pots and soak into the soil around there. And these pots, we probably won't need to top them up now for at least another couple of weeks. And we will be doing something very similar in the polytunnel when we come to do our tomatoes. So if you want to see what we're going to do there, it's not quite the same because it's a slightly different environment. But when you, if you want to see what we're going to be doing there, don't forget hit the subscribe button and the bell. And when we come to do the actual tomatoes in a few weeks' time, I'll show you how we're going to adapt this principle to make sure that we get consistent tomato watering and we don't end up drowning them or drying them out, and we can avoid those split tomatoes and everything else. So I'll see you again then. Cheerio.